Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about the Houston Dynamo in the Moving Forward series episode. And for the Houston Dynamo, they're kind of that team this year. And what I mean by that, I mean, yeah, it was kind of an incredible mid-season for the Houston Dynamo. And I think this season is kind of what DC fans have been warning about Ben Olsen when he joined the Houston Dynamo. Ben Olsen can have those kind of years when he was with DC where it can be an incredible year and it's kind of a team that you really want to watch and really want to root for it to do well, just like what we saw with the Houston Dynamo make their way to the Western Conference Final not long ago. But there was also a lot of year under Ben Olsen where DC fans were just kind of pulling their hair out because of the boring style that Ben Olsen implemented. I mean, that Benny Ball that DC fans have always said about how frustrating it is and how boring it can be, it kind of showed up this season with the Houston Dynamo. Now, obviously, part of that may be due to the fact that the signings that made or the lack of signings that they made throughout this season might have played a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, it feels like the Houston Dynamo are kind of drifting themselves back to where they were a couple of years ago, which is, yeah, this looks like a team that maybe has kind of found themselves near the bottom part of the Western Conference again, and that is a play that I'm pretty sure Houston Dynamo fans know all about in the mid 2010s and even to the late 2010s, and they thought they were out of it after they decided to get rid of their last GM. That is. Now, in terms of their record, 9-10-15 is their record with 37 points. And to be fair, this team was in the playoff hunt for a while, as it is kind of the case with a lot of teams that were near the bottom of the Western Conference. I mean, the West this season, in terms of power, or in terms of the playoff race, it was just a gong show at times. I mean, it was got to a point where it feels like nobody wanted to make it into the playoffs, and it was also kind of really just confusing in terms of seeing how no teams want to secure that final two spot until decision day. And the Dynamo, despite how mediocre they were, they all that's all they need to try to keep in the playoff race as long as possible, but they still miss out of it by finishing in 12th in the Western Conference. They've only scored 43 goals this season while conceding 56 goals this season with a minus 13 goal differential. Top goal scorer of this team, Ezekiel Ponsing, actually finished with 10 goals, and I'm shocked the fact that he finished with 10 goals because, yeah, as we'll talk about in a bit, those 10 goals that he scored were a little bit misleading, and some of them, of course, from the spot as well. But if you ask any Dynamo fans, you know how frustrated of a player he was this season. Then you got Jack McGlynn with 6 goals, Felipe Andrade with 4 goals, Andre Linger with 3 goals, and then Griffin Dorsey rounds up the top five with 2 goals. Top assist leader, unsurprisingly, is Jack McGlynn with 8 assists, followed by Griffin Dorsey with 6 assists, Andre Linger with 4 assists, Lawrence Anelli with 4 assists, and Amin Bassi rounds up the top five with 3 assists for the Houston Dynamo. Best win of the season. I'm gonna go with the 4-3 win that they had on the road against San Diego. I could have gone with the 3-0 win that they had against NYCFC on the road, and the reason why I want to mention that is the fact that they were kind of missing half of the team in that game. And granted, NYCFC were kind of a very inconsistent team, at least in the beginning of the season, but most of that is on the road. They were actually a pretty good team at home, but for whatever reason, in that game against the Houston Dynamo, a team that pretty much was down half of their team, and yet somehow they won 3-0 in that game. So go figure in terms of how the Dynamo pull that off. But I also think maybe it's a part of what I said about NYCFC throughout the season, where for whatever reason at home this season they can always beat the good teams at home, but when it comes to face against teams that they should be easily beat and on paper should be easy 3 points, they kind of play down to their competition. And that night was a prime example of NYCFC kind of playing down to their competition against Houston rather than maybe. I mean, it's a combination of that and the Houston Dynamo just miraculously won that game despite not having half the roster. But again, I'm still gonna go with the 4-3 win that they had against San Diego. What a crazy game that turns out to be. I mean, that's gonna go down as one of the best games we ever seen. The fact that the Dynamo were fighting so hard in that game, and that's kind of the spirit that we saw with the Dynamo a couple of years ago, a team that made it to the Western Conference Final, that refused to die mentality and always find a way to win the game at mentality, something that was kind of missing a lot throughout the season. Yeah, it definitely showed up that night at Snapdragon Stadium. The worst loss of the season was actually not long after their best win of the season. It was a 3-0 loss against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now, granted, I know I'm a little bit picky with this one because Vancouver is a very good team, and that they no matter if they're both at home on the road, they sometimes put up this kind of resort. But even then, I mean, you're playing at home, and as I'll talk about in just a bit with the Dynamo, home form was once again a big problem for this team. But the fact that not only they lost that game against the Vancouver Whitecaps, it was an absolute no-show for the Houston Dynamo. Like they didn't show up whatsoever. They were getting absolutely outmanned in every single face against the Vancouver Whitecaps. And if you're a fan that pay hard money to watch a team and to get beat like that. I mean, yes, I know it's against one of the best teams in the league, but that's inexcusable. Like that is absolutely inexcusable to get beat like that. And add to the fact that this happened in July. One of the things that I'll also mention later about the Houston Dynamo and just what's baffled me is about their recent struggle on the home is the home form used to be very good because around this time of the period, around the summer, this is where the Dynamo gets their huge advantage. That heat and humidity in Houston just absolutely kills every single team that walks it in there. I mean that's kind of the reason why a lot of teams really struggle. They just cannot deal with the heat and humidity. But lately, I mean, it's been just completely different. I mean, maybe part of that is because teams kind of adapted a little bit better, but still, I mean, yeah, that was kind of surprising to see that in really the midst of the summer in Houston, a time where they usually get a lot of wins because they catch a lot of teams get kind of very tired or maybe can't overcome the heat and humility, and they get absolutely humiliated themselves in that game against the Whitecaps. Yeah, easily the worst loss of the season. Average attendance 17,693. That's actually gone up compared to last season. Now, yes, I know part of the reason why it gone up is because they got the Messi boost. They were one of the three Western Conference team that won the Messi sweepstake this season. And by the way, speaking of Messi sweepstake, there's going to be chance that a lot of Western Conference team is going to win that sweepstake heading into 2027, especially with the calendar being switched and how the format is. But yeah, they definitely got a boost in terms of that. But still, games, when you look at the attendance for Dynamo games, it's definitely gone better compared to previous season. I don't really need to dwell too much about the attendance woes for the Houston Dynamo. That feels like it's a tale old as time. But yeah, the attendance has kind of gone up a little bit better, which is kind of a mystery considering the fact that again this team it's not a very good team to watch. It's a kind of a very boring team to watch, but yeah, fans still show up in terms of watching these games, which is something that's kind of weird to see consider when they were good. Fans still weren't showing up to watch this team play. Now, MVP of this team, it's got to be Jack McGlynn. I mean, Jack McGlynn this season, he's been everything what the Dynamo were envision. And while his number is not as good as he was doing his time with the Philadelphia Union, he just kind of proves you how good of a player he is, and kind of also a player that I was really surprised the Philadelphia Union let go him. Yes, I know there was some other good option with the Union as the season goes along, but I mean. I didn't think Jack McGlynn was going to be the guy to let go. I mean, I know the Union was selling a lot of players, but with McGlynn being one of their younger player and a guy that I thought he was going to come out of the union system and eventually sold off for a huge amount of money. That wasn't kind of the case. But him going to the Houston Dynamo has really kind of made him a chance to really kind of be the star of the team, especially in the creative department. He's one of the best deep making playmaker, one of the best eight in the league, and he kind of showed it again throughout the season, especially on set piece too. His set piece delivery is absolutely exceptional. Disappointment Ezekiel Ponce. And again, I know people would think that that's absolutely crazy that I picked Ezekiel Ponce, especially when you look at the number that is. But again, as I said before, if you ask any Houston Dynamo fans who is the most disappointing player this season, I feel a lot of them will point to Ezekiel Ponce. If you just ignore the numbers that he put, yes, he was still the top goal scorer of this team. But when you look at the underlying number and just kind of look at how he played throughout the season, it's still kind of mind-boggling the fact that he hit double-digit goals scored. I mean, he was a very frustrating player to watch, and I was able to watch a lot of Houston Dynamo games this season, as I usually do when it comes to trying to watch as many MLS games as possible. And one thing that kind of points me out and kind of know why Houston Dynamo fans feel like Ponce has been a huge disappointment is just the fact that he doesn't act like a true goal scorer number nine. He's a guy that sometimes just drop way too deep and doesn't really get involved in the attack whatsoever. Yes, his hold up play is definitely good, and also his passing skill is good, but that's only one part of being a number nine. I mean, for the most part, being a number nine, you want to be a guy that actually could be lethal in terms of goal scoring and also able to get into the right space to create chances to score goals. Ponce didn't show that throughout this season. And for a guy that is also labeled as a DP player like that, I mean, that's got to be a huge disappointment to not show that kind of quality. And it kind of gets to the point where maybe he's just not the guy for this team. And also, not to mention, when it comes to the goal scoring, he's also a little bit down compared to last season as well. Now, young player to watch. I'm gonna go with Lawrence Anelli, but shout out to Brooklyn Reigns as well. I think he is definitely a guy that could be an upcoming player for this Houston Dynamo team, and I'm expecting he's probably gonna get more minutes. Definitely, one of the best youngsters that this Dynamo team has had. But I'm gonna go with Anelli mainly because the fact that I know the numbers is definitely not there, but you got to remember he's coming off of a torn ACL injury, and the fact that he's still were able to put four assists and be one of the top five assists later on this team, despite missing most of the season because of that ACL injury he's recovering. That maybe is very damning to talk about how the creativity department for this Dynamo team was not good throughout the season as well. But once he does get healthy, I have no doubt he can get himself back to where he was last season. Remember when he come to this team before he suffered that torn ACL, he was an electric player. He was the guy that I think the Dynamo was envisioned to be. But again, that torn ACL injury really killed his momentum. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is that whether or not if he can get that speed back, he definitely showcased that in that game against San Diego. I'll never forget in terms of that incredible run that he did against San Diego and end up scoring the goal as well. If we see more of that with Lawrence Anelli, he is a very electric player to see. And again, it's all about him getting back healthy, which he should be heading into next season, and he could be a guy that could be a key for this attack in the future as well. So what went right for this Houston Dynamo team? Well, for the most part, they were pretty good on the road. They weren't as good on the road this season as they were last season, but they still were able to put up some good result on the road. And again, this is just where it feels very strange to talk about how the Houston Dynamo are a much better road team than they are at home, because for a long time it was the complete opposite. It was the home form that was great, and the road form was kind of the reason why they missed out on the playoffs. I mean, there's even that running joke with the Houston Dynamo fans saying that when they are on the road, it's an automatic L because they can't win on the road. But ever since Ben Olsen took charge of this team, it's been the opposite. They've been very good on the road, and that it kind of helped them at least boost their record a little bit because of the fact that they were pretty respectable on the road this season. And then of course I talk about Jack McGlynn. He's been everything that they envisioned. Just an electric kind of player, and a player that, again, I'm still really surprised the Union let him go. There, I didn't think the Union had to let him go, especially what he brings to the table, and he's just gonna better. I think in the near future as well. So what went wrong for this Houston Dynamo team? Well, yeah, they were a very boring team to watch, and a very boring team that also is not good at defending. That sounds very familiar from Ben Olsen team with DC, where yeah, that was also a very boring team that can't defend whatsoever. And when you look at the goals that they conceded, I mean, with the style that they played, the fact that they still conceded 56 goals, just to kind of shows you how poor they were defensively. Like when they play a very kind of defensive kind of style and they still are conceding a lot of goal, a lot has to point in turn the finger toward the defense, and is even the goalkeeping position as well. I'm pretty sure they regret of letting go Steve Clark, don't they? I mean, as soon as they let Steve Clark walk, it was just a question mark in terms of the goalkeeping position. Tarbell, of course, was was kind of what you advertise as not a starting goalkeeper in MLS, and then they decided to bring Jonathan Bond back from MLS. He had his stint with the LA Galaxy, and yeah, Bond was not good either. In fact, he probably was worse than he was doing his time with the Galaxy as well. So yeah, had a combination of bad defending and also a goalkeeper that was not great whatsoever throughout the season. Then you get a situation where they conceded a lot of goals this season. They're terrible at home this season. I mean, at home their home form was so bad. The fact that they actually suffered the most loss out of any home team in the Western Conference. They're actually tied with New England with the most loss this season at home as well. That just shows you how it is a big mystery of why they have started to become bad at home in these last couple of years. Maybe it's due to the defensive style that Ben Olsen runs. Maybe that kind of just shows you that maybe that's kind of the reason why they're good on the road because of the way that they play a very defensive style. That tends to work better on the road than you are at home because when you're at home you're always the protagonist of the team, and this is a team that can also hold on to possession and dominate possession as well. But when you are a team that aren't giving those transitional moments as they haven't really quite do so at home because of them being the protagonist. Yeah, you kind of just see how bad they were at home throughout this season. And then of course there was virtually not many upgrade that was desperately needed for this team. I mean, yes, they did make some signings this season. Some under the radar signing like Andre Linger and Felipe Andrade, but both of those players, I mean, they were kind of underwhelming this season. Considering throughout the last off season, I mentioned the fact that this team desperately needs some replacement, especially they need to find the good replacement for Hector Herrera, which is not easy to do, but they also need to find a Carrasquilla replacement as well, and they haven't really quite done that. And throughout the season, I thought eventually they were going to wait till the summer transfer window. I mentioned many times, it feels like this team is just trying to survive to the summer so that they could get the signings that they need to compete for the playoffs, and that never happened. I mean and it feels like this is another example of, unfortunately, the Houston Dynamo kind of heading themselves back to the direction that frustrate their fans a couple of years ago, and why they want their GM out for a long time, and that of course is them being cheap. This team has been notoriously cheap for a long year, and while Pat Onstead, ever since coming in, he has definitely shown a little bit more envision when it comes to signing players and so forth. We haven't seen that, at least in this past season, and that's where I think the Dynamo fans are starting getting frustrated again, saying that, well, I mean, I thought we were done with this crap about us not spending money and trying to be ambitious in terms of upgrading the roster, because yeah, it feels like we're back in that hole again of being cheap with our signings. And when you're being cheap with the signings, especially nowadays in MLS, it usually doesn't go so well for you. Now, moving forward, how is this Dynamo team going to look? Again, they need to spend some signing and reinforcement. Whatever kind of ambition that Pat Olmsted brought to this team when he took charge of this team, they need to show the same ambition again, because it is pretty clear that they need reinforcement badly. Especially, again, they haven't clearly replaced both Karaskia and Hector Herrera in those spot as well. And part of the reinforcement that they need is the defense. They need a new backline. I mean, when you look at that backline, and another signings that I also didn't mention that was very underwhelming, Antonio Carlos. And while Antonio Carlos was good during his time with Orlando City, you can kind of see this year when he came back to MLS, it feels like he hit the wrong end of 30. He looked nothing like the Antonio Carlos that he was with Orlando City. And yeah, this is where and a combination of Sedichenko kind of also had a very down season as well. We desperately need to reshape the back line, and the goalkeeping spot is something that they need to figure out as well. Again, letting go on Steve Clark. I know Steve Clark is kind of near the end of his career, and they eventually have to find a replacement for him. But if they were looking for a replacement and they think that Andrew Tarbell and Jonathan Bond was the answer, even though technically they actually do have from what I heard, a very good promising young goalkeeper in Blake Gillingham in this team, and the fact that they don't really play him in the team, despite the fact that they have an issue in terms of the goalkeeping spot, that is just kind of malpractice in my opinion, and just kind of shows you the numerous problem that this team has shown throughout this season. And then I think the last thing moving forward about this team has to go back to Ben Olsen. Again, this is a thing that DC fans have warned Houston fans about Ben Olsen, and one of the problem of why Ben Olsen was a very unpopular hire when he was with the Houston Dynamo, and that of course is doing the latter part of the period. The longer that Ben Olsen is there, the more conservative he started to become, and we're starting to see that conservatism again with his team, where it's just a very boring team to watch. it's a team that doesn't really make a lot of changes and maybe kind of running it back for the next season without any real replacement and also real tactical sense. I mean, when you of course do well in your first season in terms of the tactics that he set, that's great. But heading into next season, teams are going to make that adjustment, and this is the problem with Ben Olsen. He doesn't do well when it comes to teams starting to make adjustment and teams starting to figure out his tactics little bit, and that also kind of goes back to the conservatism that Ben Olsen has and the limitation of the tactics that he has, where it doesn't really evolve, and you kind of just saw that this season and kind of saw that throughout the last half decade for DC United, just being a team that is just very boring to watch. So yeah, I don't think he might be the guy to do so if he doesn't change that approach heading into next season, because I guarantee you if the Dynamo is going to have another season like this where they're kind of like an afterthought kind of team, not only the attendance is going to be bad again, but yeah, I guarantee to you that Ben Olsen is definitely going to be under hot seat again heading into next season. Of all the good things that he done, I know he of course did win a trophy with this team with the U.S. Open Cup a couple of years ago and guide this team in the Western Conference Final. But all that good deed is kind of completely erased if he started to have some bad season in a row. I mean that honeymoon period and that shrine that they had when he came in as the head coach of this team, that's gonna be gone. They're gonna have another bad season next year. So yeah, I do think that he could be under the hot seat heading into next season, and just if he decided to do the same thing he did this season heading into next year as well, he's just not the guy that will lead this team back to where they were a couple years ago. Where again, you forget that this team won a U.S. Open Cup and were in the Western Conference Final. Of the fact that yeah, that good period that they thought that they had in 2023, man, it felt like it's short lived. It feels like this is very similar to what we saw in 2017, isn't it? When that was the year where they also went to the Western Conference Final and won the Open Cup, and then it was followed by 5 years of mediocrity and also just this disappointment as well. It feels like it's happening again with this team and their projectiles heading that way again. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the Houston Dynamo in the Moving Forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Dynamo fan, what is your MVP disappointment young player to watch? What went right? What went wrong? And most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.